The criterion for the book I wrote was people who had made a catastrophic career mistake and that it ended up being the best thing that ever happened to them. So that's the core of the book, which I find is a fascinating subject. In my talk today, I talked about the fact that I have discovered throughout my career, because I was an ad guy, I was a creative in the creative department of advertising agencies and my own company, that when you're faced with a problem that you're trying to solve, I discovered over time that the solution to most problems was hiding at the heart of the problem. So the solution was hiding in the heart of the problem. So I always say, peel the problem like a banana. Rather than going outside to find the solution, peel the problem like a banana, because at the heart of the problem is the solution waiting patiently for you to find it. In my talk today, I gave an example about chicken farmers in Kenya. The hawks were eating all their chicks, and they had to figure out a way to protect their chicks. And the solution they came up with was they started to think like a hawk instead of thinking like farmers with a problem. And by doing that, they realized that hawks don't recognize the color purple. So they decided to paint all their chicks purple with this biodegradable paint that didn't harm the chicks, because the hawks don't recognize purple as dinner. So now they were able to let their chicks run in full view with no protection, and the hawks wouldn't attack them. But they only came to that solution by thinking like a hawk. In other words, the solution was found at the heart of the problem, which was, how does a hawk think? Many times, the only way through a difficult situation, or the only way to get through it, is to actually stick with it and ride it out. In the last chapter of the book, I talk about a surgeon who wanted to find a way to have less operational mistakes happening in surgery, that too many people were dying from post-operative mistakes. More people are dying that way than in car accidents in the US. So he looked to the airline industry, because pilots have a checklist that they go through before they take off, and they have a checklist if something happens midair, if a problem happens midair. When something happens midair, when there's an engine failure, something catastrophic happens, they grab the list, and the first thing on the list says, fly the plane. And although that may sound obvious, when you panic, you forget to fly the plane. You start looking for other problems. You take your eyes off the gauges. And I thought that was such an interesting insight that applied to almost every story I wrote about, that all of these people, when they were facing catastrophic career moments, they chose to fly the plane. They didn't run away, which a lot of people do. They didn't change their goals or walk away humiliated. They stuck with it. The only way, to get out is to go through it. And that's what they did. They stuck with it. They owned it. They rode the problem. And at the heart of that problem was this incredible opportunity that they were still able to grab because they stuck with it. That's the point of my book, is you have to override those instincts. You have to, and that's really the insight I wanted people to leave, that when they got to the last chapter, last page, was that you have to override the instinct to run away. And if you can do that, in most cases, you will find this incredible opportunity at the end of that horrible road. So you could argue that it takes a certain type of individual to stick with a problem like that, where you think you've thrown away your career, etc. And you may be right, but I still think you have to override your instincts to run. That's the key.